Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is John Van Etten. I'm the Managing Director of Human Synergistics office here in Germany, and a big welcome to you joining us for our session today, in which we get to talk about a human synergistics tool called Leadership Impact, and specifically get to hear from a client in terms of how Leadership Impact is used to develop leaders and create high-performing teams. If you're not familiar with the Leadership Impact as a tool, I guess I could briefly introduce that in terms of the fact that I think it's widely known and accepted that leaders have a very powerful and dramatic influence on the people whom they lead, how those individuals approach their work, work together with one another, and how that contributes to the performance of the team and organization. So Leadership Impact is actually designed specifically to measure that, essentially the impact or influence of a leader upon the individual teams that they lead. So Leadership Impact is measuring the behavioral patterns and styles that leaders are encouraging and promoting and enabling in the people and teams that they lead. So fascinating tool. From my research background in HS, always very, very interested by that concept of measuring the influence of a leader upon the people whom they lead. But we'll put that topic aside in terms of the research behind it, and thankfully today get to hear some first-person feedback in terms of how this tool is actually used in practice to coach leaders and help them to bring out the most effective performance in the people and teams that they lead. So very happy to be joined today. Thank you so much to Marie-Kristin Hahn. She's the Director of Talent Management and Diversity and Inclusion for Linde in Switzerland. And they use Leadership Impact in a very effective coaching methodology. So very much happy to have you here sharing your insights. Thank you so much for taking part in sharing this. And I will turn it over to you to take it from there. Thank you again.
Thank you, John. And just one comment, I'm not responsible for Switzerland. I'm based here in Munich in Germany and responsible for talent and D&I for our engineering business within Linde. So big process plans and turnkey process plans. I'm here today to talk a little bit about what we have done in the past using the LI assessment, the individual assessment, but also the team composite reports to drive team effectiveness. And I've prepared some slides, which I will share. So hopefully I will be able to get the technology to work. Hopefully now. All right, perfect. And please do interrupt or ask your questions while I'm talking. I think as interactive as possible is always nice to have in things like this, in sessions like this. So please feel free to interrupt. We have, as I mentioned, used the LI as well as the MI for parts of our team effectiveness journeys. And I have just brought to you a short overview of what we have done in the past and how we then use the LI to put everything into perspective and using this. So this is just an example of a journey that we have done with one of the leadership teams in the last couple of years, and where you see an outline of what we have been discussing in terms of, sure you all know the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni. We worked with teams on purpose statements and operating principles, talked about VUCA, so a lot about what's been having an influence on teams, and obviously what's always very important in that regard is how much leaders have an influence on their teams. And that was also the time when we at Linde conducted the LI assessment quite heavily, I would say, as part of our merger integration. a couple of years ago, Linde and American-based Praxair have come together as one company, and we did a huge exercise in regards to assessing our current culture and the culture that we wanted to see. And part of that was also in individual LI reports. And we thought, why not using this as a starting point to not just make our leaders more familiar with the concept, but also applying it to their own teams. And as you see here, it's called part 1 of a journey which we did. And for us, it was always important to not only conduct one-time team effectiveness workshops, but to really engage into a journey with the teams and into a journey where participation is key. So we would invite leadership teams for a 1 or 2 day workshop, work on the things that you see here now on the screen, then go back into the workplace, apply some of the learning, and about 3 to 4 months later, we would meet again. And this particular example, which you see here, was taking place over a time of roughly 2 years, where we have engaged into multiple sessions in terms of getting to know one another and also getting to know what for us as a team is important. And when we established our foundation, we used certain modules to learn more about us. And one module was social style, which I'm sure you all know. And a big influence was also the LI leadership assessment. And what we did, as I mentioned, was asking our leaders to have individual assessments, individual 360 assessments, and based on that, we created composite reports for the leadership teams, so that we worked together individually with the team leads on their own reports, but also on the composite reports. And I'm now going to share you how we have worked together with this, combining also the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni. This was always our underlying framework to work on the team effectiveness aspects in regards to team development. And what you see here, I'm sure you're very familiar with the circumplex. We wanted as Linde to move to a constructive culture. Of course, that was always important for us, and we used this as a starting point to work also on our culture transformation. And for us, it was important to first of all lay the foundation in terms of reviewing the module again, making sure that our leaders know the concepts behind that and also what most positively influences their working culture and also our overall culture in the workplace. And we tried to operationalize the leadership strategies, which are also part of the module, and where the leaders get specific reports about. We try to dig this deeper and compile that into precise action plans for the team, and to also see what they have been doing in terms of to operationalize this. And the leaders, I see that there was one question in the chat regarding how we selected the leaders that wanted to work with us. And for us, it was we had one business unit head who said that she at that time wanted to work on team effectiveness, and that was the time when we also discussed regarding the LI and when it was introduced. And so it was not a lot about a discussion that who should take part. It was more a given that everyone on the leadership team would be included and would do an LI assessment at that time, and that we would use this output for the composite report. So when we laid the foundation, we also took the data that we had, and here you see just an example in regards to the comparison of the different circumplexes, as well as to the comparison to also what we said at Linde overall we would like to see. And here you see the specific example for a leadership team, which was a quite big leadership team. So 22 leaders were assessed, and more than 250 people provided their responses to the questionnaire. And you see the impact that they had on others, so the circumplex. We also saw that we had an ideal, which you see here, of those 22 leaders, which we put into perspective, obviously. And on the other hand, we had our target culture overall at Linde, which we looked at. And you see where the gaps are. So obviously a very constructive culture was our target culture. But still, you see a lot of aggressive defensive style, which is maybe more than we should think, or we should think would be ideal. And the same applies to the passive defensive style. So the ideal is still more than what we said how the target culture could look like. And that was also the starting point to see, okay, where and how do we now work together with the team on these different styles. And we focused on the leadership strategies. So as I mentioned, that as part of each report, individual leaders received the strategies and knew quite immediately with which focus they should work on. And this is also what we applied to the teams. And we said that for the teams, we would like to work on specific items. And we went this far as that, although the leader received feedback individually and anonymously, in the workshop itself, we used these different dimensions to work on that together and to discuss how as the team we could even get better and be more prescriptive and less restrictive in our leadership styles. And we also open up the stage again for feedback towards the leader in that team. And that was something which obviously we could not do at the very beginning of such a team effectiveness journey, because it takes time until you establish the level of trust that you are also willing to open up in front of others, that you are willing to show vulnerability, which is a very important aspect in the Patrick Lencioni model. And when we worked on detail with these strategies, we were already, I would say, half a year into the team effectiveness journey, which meant that the foundation was already in place in terms of people were used to talking about each other, providing constructive feedback to one another, and really engaging into constructive conflict as well. And I have to say, when we did this first session, it was quite eye-opening, especially also for the leader, to really get precise feedback in the room from the people on these different strategies, for example, on what the leader, him or herself, could do better, and also as the team, what the team could do better in that regard. And this is just here an example of what the team decided where the focus should be put on. And here is an example on what we then did precisely in terms of the working instructions that we gave to the leadership team. And we assigned them into 5 breakout groups. As a reminder, we had 22 leaders, so quite a big group in this audience. And we asked them to dig deeper into the prescriptive and restrictive behaviors and to find ways how we can increase our prescriptive dimension and doing less restrictive things. And this worked quite well. We sent them off. They talked a lot. There was very controversial discussions in that regard. And for us, it was, as I mentioned, important that the team is not waiting on an artificial level and discussing things, but really being precise and really walking the talk. And this is why we started to, in the beginning, which I showed you on the first slide, to start the journey with talking about our purpose, talking about operating principles, about how we want to work together as a team. And this laid the foundation to be really open about the different dimensions of the LI assessment, and to not just review the individual reports with one another, but to engage into a discussion as a team, and using this composite report more precisely. And in addition to the individual feedback rounds that HR had, of course, with the leaders who did the LI assessment. And as a follow-up, we had precise to-dos assigned, precise DRIs, which needed to be done in order to get to a level of a more prescriptive behavior in the leadership team. And we did not come to the stage where we did a reassessment. John, I think you remember the conversation that we had a while ago when I said it would have been nice to do an assessment again now. Unfortunately, Linde was not committed to do it in such a broad way as we did it as part of the merger and integration work. But we could see from the Lencioni questionnaire that is based on the 5 dysfunctions of a team, you see how the team evolves in terms of the 5 dysfunctions. And you can really see whether the items that you commit, the behaviors that you commit as a leader, but also as a team, is leading to better engagement results. And this is what we have done in the past and what we are still doing when we talk about transforming a culture and working individually with our leaders, and conducting this team effectiveness as part of the LI assessment. And let me see, this is already the end of my presentation, so a short overview, and I'm happy to get your questions.
Thank you very much. A lot of really great practices there that I'd love to see more of our clients using. So one of them being things like the use of composite reports. With leadership and management impact, those are so interesting because I think, as you recognize, but there tend to be patterns within how leaders in the organization lead. You know, it's not everyone sort of leading in their own unique way as we work within organizations and learn from leaders and role model. I've always been really interested, to the extent when we create those composites, you really see a distinct pattern in the methods that leaders use when interacting with their teams, communicating goals, you know, giving feedback, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And I think, sorry, not quite a question, but maybe I'll get there. I think we also noticed when we looked at OCI and OEI results, and we typically find this as well, you know, parallels. So the way that the organization sets goals, or the clarity with which the business sets goals, is similar to the kind of data we're finding when we look at across leaders and their ability to communicate and set goals clearly for the teams of people that they lead. So I always found that to be really an exciting method for organizations, because you start to find those shared opportunities that we as a leadership team can address, to not only so that I hopefully am more effective in leading my team, but that we start driving that change across the organization and make this, you know, go far beyond my team and more into the organization's culture and so on. the other really benefit of that, I'm so happy to see you doing this, is using those composites to identify strategies that we as a team work on together. Most of the time when we work with clients, each leader is sort of looking into their own report and finding the strategies that they want to focus on. But we've seen so much, and maybe you can give more insights into how that was identified or how that was sort of carried out. But so much sort of added benefit to us working together on one of those strategies as a shared opportunity, and also being able to do things like learn from one another as we move forward in what works and what doesn't, as we try to shape that change. How much, I guess my question would be, how much did you encourage the teams to identify those shared strategies versus focus on unique findings within their own personal reports?
So when we had a two-step approach, so to say, and we started off with the individual assessments and working also with the individuals on what their own to-dos would be before we shared the composite report with them. So after they have adjusted their own results, so to say, and had also a chance to digest and to debrief it, we went into the exercises with the team effectiveness and shared the composite report. And the results and the layout you see here on the slides, doing the team effectiveness workshop, we purely worked with the composite report. So we put aside the individual results and only worked with those results that were compiled for the entire team, and also based on those results identified the strategies which needed most attention based on the numbers. So we really selected that not by means of, yes, I would be most interested in working on a certain strategy, let me go back, but really we focused, as you see here, on those who needed the most attention, specifically in regards to the restrictive behavior, where we saw from the numbers that we need to be lower in terms of the outliers, so to say. So that was a joint decision to work on the strategies based on the identification of our to-dos in terms of results. And Philip, I think you also had a question regarding the strategies. You are still on mute.
Thank you for reminding me. If you could perhaps go back to the slide that you had with the three profiles. Mm-hmm. The thing that I found fascinating when I looked at this was how the red profiles corresponded in the other and the ideal impact responses in self. And the question that formed in my mind is, this is a very brave process to take a team through. It's not just one workshop, it's a process, mm-hmm. It's a development journey. And the question that I have is, how did the behavior styles that we can observe here, how did that actually show up during the process of mm-hmm. During the whole development process? Because there is some strong oppositional, some strong composite. So I was just mm-hmm. curious whether this actually showed up mm-hmm. throughout the process or not.
Yes, it did. And with 22 leaders, you could assume that not all 22 leaders are in favor of also a constructive style culture. And I had even a debrief session with one person who was very much in the reds as impact on others, but also on ideal. And he said, yes, this is I can totally buy this result. This is exactly how I see it and how I want to be. And this is where the discussion started to say, hey, look, but looking at our target culture, we are seeking for something else. But you could see still in the end, we had a lot of discussion and a lot of this open and constructive feedback, and people really saying, listen, I'm really not into this whole topic, and for me, how I lead worked well in the last 15, 20 years, and why should I change now? Because we are working on this culture is not a reason for me. And we still managed to get those people on board, and we still managed also to get those people involved in the breakout sessions. And that is what it made so interesting and constructive, because we had not always the people involved who were in favor and who said, yeah, we really need a blue culture, as we called it, a constructive culture. But we also had the people who said, listen, I don't buy that. And still we found a consensus in the aspects where we said we would like to work on. And there was a mutual agreement that everything we said we would do as action points, we are also doing. But maybe this is also the culture that we have here within Linde, that once a decision is made, we stick to that. Then there's no debate. Although people might not be in favor of that, but we still then go for it. And but we have a lot of discussion up front. And this is also something we saw in our culture, work with the legacy Linde culture versus the legacy Praxair culture. And John, I think you were more involved at that time than I was in the whole work stream, but you could see that we differed quite heavily in terms of how much we would debate until a decision is taken from a Linde perspective, and also from a Praxair perspective. And these two came together. And I need to say, for this leadership team, it was made 1/3 was legacy Linde and 1/3 was legacy Praxair. So that makes maybe also a little bit of a difference on how you would see the culture aspects. But it was not that everyone said, yeah, let's do it.
Just a follow-up question, Marie, thank you very much. Can you share any insights that would help us deal with situations like that? Because, you know, we continuously, especially when dealing with senior executives, we have people who show up like that. Is there anything that, from your insights, that maybe we could all learn from in order to help people move from, let's say, a more red attitude to join the others on the blue side?
I think it's very much linked to how role models are behaving, and also what you as an organization value in terms of in terms of what is done in the organization and how it's done. And so, for example, we have as part of our of combining our two cultures, we have created a new values and new performance management system, where we specifically look not just at the targets, but also how they are achieved. And the how needs to be in line with our values and with what we say we would do, and what we say how we would behave. And I think organizations need to walk the talk and not just say that, hey, we value good performance, but not if it's for the sake of bad behavior, for example. And specifically with this team, I can share that we are having, at that time, we still had performance ratings in place, and we calibrated those ratings. And there was one example where the business performance was excellent, but the behavior of the leader was not in line with our behaviors, which we set out ourselves in our one Linde philosophy, we call it. And the leader said, because of the behavior, I'm not willing to go for a higher rating. And so we were really walking the talk. And I think this is what makes the difference. And this is how you slowly, I think, shape a culture. If you're just saying something but doing the opposite, and people feel that it's just some nice brochure that you are producing and you are not sticking to your own values, this is, I think, killing then the whole discussion. So we had a lot of these examples, and but still it takes a long time, and we continuously need to work on that, and continuously have also the support and the role models on all levels in our organization, not just the top. I think the top is very important, but also the influencers in lower levels of the organization who are having great networks and who are maybe not influencing by their line manager capacity or role, but by their informal influencing and skills.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Not from me. Thank you, Marie. I really appreciated that.
Thanks for your questions. Happy to share what we have done. I think there are many other ways to do it. And yeah, if you have any further question, please reach out to John. He can provide you also my contact details to engage in more detail if you would like to.
Thank you. That's a very kind offer, and thank you from my side as well. It's wonderful to work with you and your organization over the years, and especially to have you sharing these insights for others to learn and benefit. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
All right then.